Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Singleton, and I'm with Advito Marketing. I'd like to officially welcome you to our webinar, Future Fit Your Hotel Strategy, Sourcing and Managing Hotels in the Age of COVID-19. In this webinar, our experts will discuss how COVID-19 has changed hotel category management and what you need to do to future fit your program. A few quick housekeeping reminders. This webinar is being recorded, so please keep your lines on mute throughout the presentation so we can ensure good sound quality. During the presentation, feel free to type a question in the Q&A or chat window that you should see on the right-hand side of your screen. Please make sure you select panelist in the drop-down to ensure that we receive your question. We will save time at the end for our speakers to address all the questions, and if we run out of time before your question is answered, we can follow up with you by email. Now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers for today's webinar. April Bridgman is the Managing Director of Advito and the Senior Vice President of our hotel solution, Stay by BCD Travel. Her team develops innovative client solutions that deliver significant incremental hotel savings. She breaks traditional thought around the value of resource-intensive sourcing projects with fresh approaches focused on spend management and program adoption using consumer and behavior-based strategies. She is joined by the Senior Director of Sourcing and Spend Management and Advito's Global Hotel Practice Lead, Laura Cousteau. Laura leads our global team of consultants in delivering innovative hotel sourcing and program performance management solutions. Thanks again for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over now to Laura to get us started.
Great, thanks, Erin, and welcome everyone. It's great to be here with all of you today. So I'm just going to flip us over to a quick little agenda slide. So we're going to kick things off today just talking about how the landscape has changed in light of COVID-19. And then we'll get into how to future fit your hotel program. From there, I'll be turning it over to April to talk about savings beyond sourcing and how to influence travelers. And we'll wrap things up with a little bit of Q&A. So with that, let's talk about how the landscape has changed in light of COVID-19. There's definitely some notable ways in which the landscape is different. The first of which should come as no surprise, rate deterioration. So during this time, many things in the travel industry have really been scaled back. But one thing that we do within our practice is we shop for bar rates every single month. We shop tens of thousands of hotels. And this initiative is actually something that we've ramped up during COVID because we've realized that understanding what is happening with rates at a market level and at an individual property level is more important than ever. And so this is just a brief snapshot of some of the top markets in the world where business travel is very prevalent. And you can see, just year over year, this is the change from 2019 to 2020. So, for example, the top row there, Paris, France, in March, rates were down 5% versus 2019. In April, they dropped to 25% lower. In May, it looked, a little bit of a recovery, maybe up to, just 17%. But then again, they keep deteriorating. June down year over year, 39%, et cetera. So this data we feel is very telling. It's just showing, the landscape has totally changed. Obviously, very little demand for hotels nowadays. And so with respect to your corporate hotel programs and the static rates that you've negotiated, the competitiveness of those rates has really deteriorated. And if they're not already just completely priced above the actual bar rate at the hotel. So that's something to keep in mind as you look at what the future of your program may be. Another obvious, clear way the landscape has changed is with respect to hotel cleanliness. This topic came on the scene fast and furious, and the velocity with which it came onto the scene has resulted in a lot of fragmentation across the topic. So the chains, industry associations, individual countries, maybe conglomerates of countries are all making different standards. They all have similarities, but they're all very different. And so, understanding, what is what from one standard to the next can be confusing, and it's hard to make a lot of sense of that. So as such, various entities are seeking to normalize the standards to help you, draw those correlations across them. And then some individual hotels and some third parties are offering certifications, and the individual hotels are going after and getting some of those certifications. One thing we really want to point out is that it is absolutely key that you understand that there's a difference between the labels and the standards, normalizing the standards as far as, hotels saying what they are doing. There's a difference between that and an actual certification. And our recommendation here is, don't get lost in the mess here. What you need to do is determine what's right for your company and for your travelers. And it's all about helping them understand the standards and so they feel safe and they want to get back on the road again. Last but not least, the big way that the landscape has changed is that instability seems to have become our new constant. And it is majorly seen with respect to the hotels. I mean, they've been through a lot right now. They're all dealing with a lot of instability. They're not operating at full staff. Their availability is very limited. And so when it comes to their ability to sit down with you and talk about your hotel rates, it's compromised. And so as such, we're seeing a lot of offers being sent to our clients for the rollover process going into 2021. They're usually accompanying those with some floating discounts. However, those discounts are lower than your discounts that you have at dynamic properties. So that we think is a problem. But on the same note, your travel volumes are lower. And so, we have to take all of this into consideration as we approach the next year and thinking about travel coming back and what should your hotel program look like. But at the end of the day, we really think that you can't expect the hotel chains to meet you as a part of the negotiation process as you have before. And so you need to start doing things to drive your own savings. You can't rely on the hotels to be a part of this process as much as you have in the past. So what can you do to put yourself in the driver's seat here and in controlling spend? And we think it's a really great opportunity. It's very empowering. And that's sort of the silver lining in all of this. It's a really great opportunity for change. So that's how the landscape has changed. Now let's take a look at how to actually future fit your program post-COVID. So one thing we want to do as far as kicking this whole topic off is addressing the offers that are coming from the chains. Those of you who are travel managers on the phone today, we're sure that some of you, if not all of you, have started to see some of these offers. And I actually want to even put that word offers a little bit in air quotes because we are, just to be very, very honest, we're not real pleased with what we're seeing the chains come out with. And I want to illustrate this with an example. There's a lot here on the slide, but this is so important that you see the dynamics here. So in this example, we'll start here over on the left. Let's just take a property and let's take what's happened at that individual property. Back in 2019, a year ago, let's say their bar was $200. And now here in 2020, in light of COVID, it's deteriorated and their best available rate has now gone down to 110. That's a 45% rate deterioration, which is not uncommon. It's definitely what we're seeing. So then that's that property, and then let's take a couple of scenarios. Let's say that you're a client and you're bringing this property 2,000 room nights. And this is what you negotiated coming into 2020. At 2,000 room nights, you said, I really want a static rate. You've got a great relationship with this hotel because that's a lot of room nights. You managed to negotiate a rate of 120. Now, based on that 2019 bar last year, again, the latest data you had, that 120 rate is a 40% discount off of bar. So it's pretty good, right? But now bar's at 110. So your 120 is higher than bar. That's not good. But we're seeing that everywhere. Well, so now the chain is making this offer to you to roll over that 120, and then they say, just in case bar stays below 120, we'll float you an additional discount off of bar of 10%. So that means that instead of paying 110, you're paying 99. So it's great. It's less than the 120. It's still a discount off of bar. But keep in mind, you're bringing this hotel 2,000 room nights, and you're only getting 10%. So here in scenario B, let's say you only bring them 250 room nights. And so instead of negotiating a static rate, you negotiated a dynamic discount. And that discount was 20%. So that means that based on that 2019 bar at the time of the negotiation, you're effectively getting an average rate of about 160. So, again, that's fair. Fewer room nights, you're going to pay a little bit of a higher rate. But now bar's at 110 because of COVID. And so guess what? That 20% means you're getting a rate of $88. And of course, the chain is now offering to roll over all of your rates, dynamic rates included. So you're still getting a 20% off at that hotel, but you're paying less than someone with 2,000 room nights who got a rollover of a static rate and only a discount of 10%. So it's really important that you see this. You see how the static rates are just not being valued. The properties where you have the static rates, your business is not being valued. It's being valued less than the business that you're bringing to, say, the dynamic rate properties that you have. So our recommendation here is, sit down with the chains, make this point. We've had many conversations with the chains about this. I've pointed it out to numerous chains, and they are still making these offers. So we're encouraging our clients to have these conversations, seek to get fair discounts for your static properties. And honestly, if you can't reach an agreement with a specific chain, you can simply remove preferred designations next to those properties. They can still load the rates, that's fine. But why would you mark these properties preferred if you're just not getting the discount that your business deserved? So that's something that we really wanted to point out as it comes to starting that future fit process. But that's just one piece of it. That's just the start. What you need to then do is get really thoughtful about your programs. Again, so much has changed. And the first thing that you need to do is absolutely forecast your future travel volumes. I've had a number of client conversations in the last week, and most of our clients are doing this, and it's really great. I'm really glad to see that people are being thoughtful about this. But the reason you need to do this is because obviously they're lower. Everybody's volumes are lower than they have been. And so going into 2021, it's not like they're going to magically just get back to where they were in 2019. So you need to sit down and forecast those volumes market by market. Because at the end of the day, you can't expect the hotels to sit down with you and negotiate all the rates that you have in the past. On one side, like I just pointed out, the chain offers we think deserve a second look and some negotiation. But on the other end of the spectrum, you can't expect the chains to give you all the attention that they've given you in the past when you're not bringing them the business. So once you've forecasted the volumes, you need to plan to consolidate your preferred hotels. So for example, if you have a market where in the past you had 5,000 room nights, maybe 6 hotels, and now you're forecasting 2,000 room nights, well, you probably need to drop down to about 2 hotels. But then you can convey that information to the hotel. Hey, I've done this thoughtful exercise. I've forecasted my volumes down. I'm only soliciting 2 in this market. And guess what? You're one of them. You're a key partner to me, and that's going to go a long way with the properties. So and last here, with respect to working with the properties, again, the central chain representatives, if you have a national account manager with a chain, they may be very limited in their ability to support you. So you can start with them, but if it appears that the availability is going to be limited and it's going to slow you down, you can approach the property directly. Engage with them, get a sense of what's going on at that hotel. This is also a really great way to talk about the cleanliness and safety standards with your top hotels and strengthen that relationship with that top hotel. And once you've set up an agreement with them that they do want to participate in an RFP, you can engage that central rep to help confirm the agreement centrally. So from there, a couple of other things, digging a little deeper into what you might be talking about with those top hotels. Our recommendation here is to take a strategy that will both future-proof your rates and your investment of time in this process. So first, our recommendation is to shift the majority of your rates to dynamic. I know that can make people a little uneasy, so just bear with me here because I want to show you a few reasons why. And on the next slide, I've got some really exciting news with respect to how we monitor these rates. So really, the shift to dynamic, right now we're dealing with so much market volatility, lockdowns versus openings. You can see rates going up and down. So by securing a dynamic rate, and think about your airline contracts today, they're always priced at 1% off of the published fare, so you know you're always getting a discount. The same thing with dynamic rates. So there's going to be some fluctuation, and when you negotiate a dynamic discount, you know that you're always, again, getting that discount off of bar. But another really great benefit to dynamic rates is that you can set them to evergreen, meaning they don't expire every year. So you're not going to have to sit down at the negotiation table and touch this rate and deal with it and all the churning around the negotiation, all that time, next year. You can set it to never expire and only renegotiate it when it needs to be. So if you think about the investment that you're putting into a dynamic rate, you make that big time investment once, And a static rate, you have to make that big time investment every single year. And if you think about it, that investment is part of the value of the rate, and it deteriorates the value of that rate. Another really great way to make this whole process efficient this year is to use negotiation rate targets. What we mean by that is you sit down before you approach the hotel with all the data that you have and determine what the dynamic discount is that you want. You also determine what static rate that you want based on the information available. And then when you approach the hotel, you can lay it out as a choice. Here's a static option, here's a dynamic option. Which one would you like? And if you answer the RFP with one of these options, you're immediately accepted and we're done. We'll send you the rate loading instructions and we can move forward. So again, it's a really great way to use data to your advantage, give them a choice, and move forward. So next, I want to talk a little bit more about this exciting news that I have, dynamic rate auditing. So here within Advito and BCD Stay, we have been working with our rate audit partner during the COVID downturn to really finally automate and make dynamic rate auditing a real thing. So we believe we're the first ones to market with this, and it's very, very exciting. But basically, we wanted to explain to you how dynamic rate auditing works. So let's say you've negotiated a dynamic discount of 35% off of bar. So what we do is when we go and do your rate audit, just like we audit static rates, we're out there, we're looking for that property, and then we're looking for your negotiated rate. So we pick up preferred rates simply based on the rate access code and the rate description. It doesn't matter if it's a static rate or a dynamic rate. So we pull your preferred rate, and let's say we've pulled that the preferred rate loaded is 130. At the same time that we're shopping for that and pulling that rate, we pull the bar rate at that property. And so in this example, let's say we've pulled a bar of 200. So simple, we've got those two values. And then we have analysis built into the rate auditing, computation of the results. And basically, we just do some simple math. We say, okay, bar was 200. What's their dynamic discount? It's 35%. And then it says, okay, the preferred rate loaded should be 130. And then we run a quick comparison against the rate we pulled. And in this example, they match, so the hotel passes the audit. So it's really very simple. It's just doing a little extra math, pulling one additional rate, and we have dynamic rate auditing. So if anyone has concerns around, limitations to what can be done with dynamic rates, they can be handled the exact same way as static rates. And the same thing applies for savings measurement. Again, it's all about having a bar value that you can use to run the computation of what the rates are, and you can compute all sorts of rate audit results, you can compute savings, et cetera. All right, so we've talked about level setting your program size. We've talked a little bit about how we can diversify the rate types in there, static versus dynamic, but there's a lot more that we think that you can take advantage of when it comes to rate diversification. And I wanted to mention a few examples here. So the first one is a chain-wide versus a brand-wide. Chain-wide discounts are, big industry buzzword. They're very common. We don't necessarily always think, though, about going a little deeper. And instead of doing a chain-wide, maybe just do a brand-wide discount, only at the brands that you really want your travelers to be staying at. That's another great way that you can drive some diversification and really great savings in your program. Another really great way to diversify is to start taking advantage of prepaid rates and postpaid rates. And so, or prepaid rates versus postpay. So postpay is what we're used to today. You go to the hotel and you pay when you check out. But if you prepay the rate, just like you prepay your airline ticket, you can achieve a lot of savings. And you've all probably seen those in the booking tools and various hotel websites. The prepaid rates are always a discount. And then last, restricted versus non-restricted. That's another really great thing to take advantage of. And I've got an example of that here on the next slide. So this is an example of how a restricted rate would work. And a big reason why we are encouraging clients to take advantage of these is because across our BCD client base, 25% of hotel stays are actually booked within 48 hours before check-in. So for example, if you look on the screen here, let's say that you're booking your hotel 2 days before you're going, and you can book a 223 nightly rate that's got a 24-hour cancel. So you can cancel for the next 24 hours, or you can book a 182 rate. and it's got a 7-day cancel. So at 48 hours out, you're not going to be able to cancel it. But what are the chances that you're going to cancel in the next 24 hours anyway? And right there, that's some great savings. All right, then one other thing that we want to talk about, so we're talking about your program size, level setting that, diversifying your rates, and then during the year, dynamically managing your program. So we work with our clients on this every day. We've continued working with many clients throughout COVID. And again, these are the clients that are really well versed in some of the rate deterioration statistics, and they're ready to hit the ground running now as they look to level set their programs. But throughout the year, every month, we use benchmarks to measure the performance of their program on a monthly basis and drive decisions as far as how we manage the program on an ongoing basis. So for example, there's 4 different examples of hotels here, but these are all the benchmarks that we're looking at. In this first example, you can see the bar rate at this hotel is trending at about 305. They have a negotiated rate of 250, but they're actually booking about 245. And in this instance, what we would recommend doing is, well, let's go talk to that hotel and renegotiate the rate down to what we're booking. In the second example here, this is a problem where we see rate availability being an issue. So the bar value is higher than what they're booking and have negotiated, so that looks good, but they're not getting their negotiated rate. They're booking 160 versus they've negotiated 150. So in this instance, what our teams do is they talk to that hotel about their rate availability, and we keep monitoring it. And if we don't see it improve, we make a suggestion to remove the hotel from the program. In scenario C here, we have a problem with the competitiveness of the rate that's been negotiated. So they've negotiated 160. They're actually booking about 140, so that's nice, but bar is 120. So we have a problem here with the rate that's been negotiated, and we see this a lot with accounts that we inherit, let's say mid-season. And so we'll go out there and we'll talk to that hotel. We'll try and negotiate a rate that's competitive with bar. And if we can't, that actually might be a situation where they just shouldn't have that property in their program. They're negotiating far too deep into their tail spend. So you have to be, again, really mindful, only negotiating where you have the leverage to get really good rates. And finally, scenario D here, this is a perfect illustration of good performance. We've got a bar rate of 290. They negotiated 200, and we're booking 200. So that's a scenario where we wouldn't recommend any action be taken. So I wanted to give you a rundown of how we work within our team, how we manage throughout the year, and really drive savings in our clients' programs. And these scenarios outline a lot of the scenarios we see. All right. Then the last item that we want to dig a little bit deeper into regarding the future fitting before we get into the savings beyond sourcing is the cleanliness and safety. So we're going to lay out here for you what we've been seeing and what our recommendation is. So really, when it comes to cleanliness and safety, you need to address 3 things. Is knowing that the standards exist enough for you? And will you do additional vetting, maybe on your preferreds? And then how will you guide your travelers to book when a preferred isn't available? So certain things, there's different ways that you can vet and certify a property's cleanliness and safety. So one option, which a lot of clients tend to talk about, and it seems to be the most logical, when they're asked, what should we do about this? It's kind of the knee-jerk reaction that comes. Well, we'll just ask custom questions in the RFP. That has a lot of drawbacks. The main one being is that the chains and not the individual properties themselves will likely answer these questions on behalf of all of their properties. And so you're not hearing from the individual property. The individual property doesn't have any quote unquote skin in the game here. And you also have no certainty with the frequency with which these might be updated. Another option and a better option for the top hotels that you feel are really, really important for your hotel is to get a certification. There are lots of different third parties out there that can do this. But really, there's a lot of pros to this. The questions are pre-vetted by experts in the field. You can collect a lot more detail. They can upload maybe various artifacts and documents. You can see pictures of what they're doing. And most importantly, the hotels are the ones that are doing this themselves. So you are hearing directly from the individual hotel. Now here within Advito and Stay by BCD Travel, we've actually partnered with a third party, Stay Safe Hospitality, and they have a certification that they offer. And so within our client base, this is the third party certification that we'll be offering. We've negotiated a very competitive discount on getting hotels certified, and it's relatively efficient. We wanted to find a sweet spot in finding a third-party provider that was detailed and had a really great process built that was thorough and comprehensive, but we also needed to balance that with scalability. And so our partnership with StaySafe does achieve all of those objectives, and we're really happy to be bringing that to market. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to April. I'll pass you the presenter rights here, April, and she'll be talking, kicking things off here with the savings beyond sourcing.
Great. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. And I'm really excited to talk about a topic that is absolutely near and dear to my heart. I am very keen that we help programs put sourcing in its place. Sourcing has been yielding, small incremental returns for a long time, yet it is still a very big priority and prominent feature of our clients' programs. But there are lots of other ways to save out there that are proven. It's actually, in our scope now, something we're doing constantly and consistently with programs is to make sure that we are looking beyond sourcing for those savings opportunities. I am just going to start moving these slides along. It does say that I am now the presenter, but oh goodness, it doesn't want to give me the option to move the slides.
I can try and move it for you. I think I just advanced it.
Okay. I don't see it as advanced. There it goes. Thanks. So basically, this is the reason, one of the key reasons why savings beyond sourcing as a mindset is so really critical in today's hotel category strategy. These are a couple of numbers that we see all the time and that are top of mind for us here at BCD. So 65% is the typical rate availability across the program, meaning your negotiated rate, whether static or dynamic, is available 65% of the time. We also find that that negotiated rate is the most competitive when we shop out in the marketplace about 70% of the time. If you factor those two situations together and you've got a rate, if it's available, which is around 65% of the time, is only most competitive at around 70% of the time, you end up with a situation where on average, your negotiated program is the best choice for your travelers only 45% of the time. And you're still marking these properties preferred in your program, yet you may have better choices at alternative hotels. And one of the biggest reasons this happens is because programs are negotiating so many properties where they have no leverage. The best way to increase these numbers, increase your availability, increase your competitiveness, increase the amount of time that your rate is the best choice and that property is the best choice for your traveler, is to really focus on the properties, on the market where you actually can drive leverage and put in place an arrangement with a property and chain that actually will drive value. So if you'd like to advance, please, Laura. Mm-hmm. When we talk about savings beyond sourcing, these are some of the levers that we typically pull in a program. If you take a look at a situation with like Laura just went through, you know, that reduction and diversification is really critical. But when we look beyond anything program related, it's important that you're bringing different content to your travelers to make sure that your inventory is the type of property and has the kind of rates that travelers want to buy and expect to see based on what they're seeing out in the open market. Dynamic performance management is another strategy that Laura was talking about, and we talk a lot about supplier levers there, but there are also all sorts of things that you can do to educate travelers throughout the year to encourage them to behave in ways that benefit your program, encourage them to purchase those restricted rates and talk about when it's appropriate and what the risks are. Make them more informed travelers. What I want to talk about today, what we only really have time to talk about today, are two areas. One is the importance of anchoring using behavioral economics and merchandising theory in your program. The other is the easy button I call price assurance. Want to advance? If you take a look at the concept of anchoring, the biggest predictor of what consumers will buy, what they will spend, is basically what's the first price that they see for a particular item. So when you're walking around a store, let's say Home Depot, you're looking at drills. They have a really prominent sign that, you know, this drill by Ryobi is $99. And, you know, it's got some information on it, like it's a great buy. That has set in your mind, you know, a reasonable anchor. $99 is reasonable to spend on a drill. How, you know, does it work in travel? Want to advance? If we think about anchors, let's think about rate caps. It's the most traditional and widely used anchor we have in travel. So we say to a traveler, okay, you got to book below $250 in Atlanta. And if you're the traveler, think about that. What does that mean to you? You're like, okay, cool. Any rate below $250 is fair game, and it's appropriate for me to book. So, wow, I can stay in this 4-star property for $249, it's under the cap, or I can stay in this property that's, I don't know, $190, it's only 3 stars, doesn't have great amenities, the rooms don't look at nice. I'm going to pick the $249. That happens every day. And those rate caps, setting an anchor at the highest point you want someone to spend, naturally encourages people to spend up to that level. Go ahead. Let's talk about maybe a better choice to use as an anchor. Let's talk about a rate target. Take a look at some data that's readily available, like right now to your program. You know what you're spending on average in each market, different times throughout the year. You know what you're spending based on your reporting. If you are working with someone who can provide you, you know, up to the month, what's happening in the market, you can adjust that for market factors. And boom, you have a rate target for that market. And you can reset the thinking of your travelers by using a target versus a cap. And basically, what is this going to do? They're going to say, oh, 210, that's about right for the Atlanta market. I have this choice at 249. I have this choice at 190, but I've got something middle of the road. Here's one at 200. Here's one at 220. Let me pick the 220. That automatically is reducing what your travelers spend. And we see proof of this factor and this impact over and over and over again about setting the right expectation for your travelers and making sure you're thoughtful about the information you share and the impact it has on their thought process and decision. I want to go ahead and we're going to talk real quickly about one of those examples. Wow. So we have a case study. Some of you may have seen this. but hopefully it will reinforce your desire to move from rate caps to market rate targets. We have a client we worked with for many years. They were given a challenge because their company was merging with another company. They were given a synergy target by the consulting firm that came in to do the merger synergy work. That synergy target was going to be really tough to beat using traditional savings tactics in travel. We knew we weren't going to get to this savings target simply by using the incremental leverage we gained about combining the two companies' volumes. So we said, hey, we've got to try something different. And this particular client is just so forward-thinking and open. When we came to this client with this idea, they were like, yeah, let's try it. And what they did is they actually said, hey, they worked with us on an analysis that established what an appropriate market rate was. We basically knew from their program that they had just way too many hotels in the program, and based on an analysis, we knew that most of their markets, actually a majority of their market, had so few room nights that they were negotiating really non-competitive negotiated rates, and then also including rate caps, which is artificially increasing their price. So we took a look. We said, hey, here's the market rate right now. Here's what your rate cap was. That rate cap was either something they put in place in a market, or they said the rate cap is the highest negotiated rate in the market. You can see in all of these examples that the market rate is lower than the rate cap, obviously, what it's designed to do, in every example. Next slide. We then said, okay, we've got a savings target to meet. What are we going to do? We can't keep spending the same level in each market. We've got to spend less. And so we basically reduced the size of their program, got rid of those non-competitive negotiated properties in a lot of those markets, and we established target rates at 10% less than the market rate to try to drive spend down. We knew that a target 10% less weren't necessarily going to drive a 10% savings, but we knew it would drive some savings. Next slide. And basically, it did. It drove great savings. We started by implementing the market rate target strategy, less 10%, in non-preferred markets. In those non-preferred markets, we were able to achieve an average booked rate savings of 4.9%. In the preferred markets, again, this was step one, we only achieved 2%. We knew that we would get something out of the additional leverage and out of really consolidating their properties and making sure that we were negotiating where it made sense. But we also knew that wasn't going to bring material incremental savings. We knew then from this experiment, which went on a few years ago now, that market rate targets were here to stay, and they work well. In future years, we did establish market rate targets across the board, whether there was a preferred property or not in the market. And we have been achieving greater than 3% incremental save year over year. So this is a great way for you to think about savings beyond sourcing and to get a start by dipping your toe in the waters of retailing and trying to influence your travelers. Next. The other thing that I think that too many of us I don't know, I'm not quite sure why, but I see so many programs that have implemented price assurance, either only in a limited fashion or not at all, frankly, across their program. And it's one of those slam dunks. Even if you just implement some type of hotel reshopping and booking service that is what we call like for like, so same hotel, same room type, controls for factors like breakfast inclusion, Wi-Fi, et cetera, our programs definitely achieve, even in those basic scenarios, 1 to 1.5% incremental save every year. It's worth implementing. It's a slam dunk. It is a great way to improve traveler confidence and a way to, actually, you can use this as a marketing tool to your travelers. Let them know you're out there. You've got their backs. You're going to get them lower prices if they become available. They're going to, because of that, it will give them another reason to want to book through your program. It helps with adoption too, not just savings. Next, please. Let's move on to talk a little bit more about influencing travelers, because I really think that this is the future of the game, the name of the game. And when we talk about savings beyond sourcing, the ability to influence your travelers will have a big impact on how much you can really save overall, and how you also can evolve and, I guess, make more sophisticated moves moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about traveler marketing, of which merchandising and influencing choices is a piece. We are firm believers that making sure that travelers recognize, and understand your travel program brand, the brand promise it brings is important, as is making sure that you make them smart consumers of travel by providing education where and when in their travel process that makes sense, making sure that you also understand what they're buying and why. All of those things, which are all elements of marketing, are going to make your program stronger. But let's dive in a little bit more into traveler influence. So if we think about this concept of merchandising, the idea of merchandising is just like you'd see in the grocery store. You're trying, based on, the way you message or what signs you put up or where you place things on the shelf, or where you, what type of, promotion you may put in place to influence which products travelers actually buy. We can do the same in the online booking tool. I think many of you have heard me or Leslie O'Brien or others from Advito say, your booking tool is your travel store. And you can influence what people purchase in that store, just like the grocery stores influence what you buy every day. Here's just a quick case, a quick example. We have a client, Finastra, that we worked with because they needed to shift share for a long list of reasons. And we over and over again see this ability, just by letting travelers know what we want them to do and doing our best to make sure that the search results promote those same behaviors, that they actually do what we suggest that they do. And if you take a look here at what this slide says, we started with only a 25% delta share in this particular market. We moved just in a couple of weeks to 65%. Then, oh my goodness, we had a period where we were at 100%, and we've now leveled off at about 75%, or at least we had, throughout the 2019 travel year. And this works really well with hotels. If you remove a hotel, don't feel, like you're beholden to keep a hotel in program because you can't get your travelers not to book there. You can. You might not be able to change everyone's behavior, but you can change enough by just letting them know that you don't want them to book that hotel anymore right when they're at the point of decision. And guess what? A lot of them won't. Maybe I'm Pollyanna, but I definitely believe that travelers want to do the right thing. I want to just quickly go through a couple of examples and ways that you can merchandise, and then we will actually go through some Q&A if you have any. Let's take a look here. Think about adoption. In the industry, we still have an adoption problem. You want to build confidence with your travelers that they're going to get great choices in your travel program around hotels. So, letting them know that you have invested in the option to bring in content that they would see if they went out and shopped themselves, which many of them do, is a great way to pique their interest. Maybe they'll want to look when they book that air. Next. here's another example. You could put a banner in, and a lot of these are adoption examples, but you could put a banner in here encouraging someone to book hotel after they have booked their air, to continue on, or at least make them think about coming back. There's so many different areas within, and this is a Concur example, but within Concur, within Get There, within Citrix, that you can put messaging, that the opportunities, quite frankly, are endless. Next. Making this, a more visual experience as well is going to make it feel more consumer-like, which is also going to attract travelers to your program. There's another factor here. You can provide education. Let them know, hey, go for it. Here's when we want you to book non-refundable rates. You can let them know that how to consider your preferred program. For BCD, we've developed some standard banners that our clients can use that will say something to the effect, preferred means that we've negotiated a rate with this hotel, but guess what? It's not always available. So if the preferred property isn't offering a good deal, don't book it. Find another alternative. And that, gives them some context in which to consider preferred. Because if you think about it, I always try to put on the hat of Joe Traveler, who, really doesn't understand what a travel program is or means. And I think to myself, well, wow, what would preferred really mean to me? Does that mean I book it no matter what, even if it's not the best deal? What does that really mean? So let's use the opportunities we have in the booking path to give them that kind of context, to make good purchasing decisions on behalf of the company. And I will say, I guess from our company perspective, we absolutely, want to support your preferred providers, but they also have to support you by giving you good deals. And they can't expect that you're going to be booking them no matter what's happening in the rest of the marketplace if they're not giving you one of those good deals. Next. The other example I like here is if you take a look at that smaller skinny banner, the second banner you see at the top, give them tips about how to better use the tool. One of the things that I think really does impact traveler confidence, let's say the traveler says, I am going to Chicago, Illinois. In Chicago, Illinois, results pop up and the search radius is limited, which it should be. And so what they see is only 5 miles or 5 kilometers relative to the search point that they put in place. They need to know, they'll be like, oh my gosh, why can't I see, the hotel I want on this tool? Or I don't trust this tool anymore because it's not giving me what I expect. Which happens all the time. That decreases consumer confidence. They're going to pop right back out and go to a tool that they understand how to use. So let them know how to use Concur. Give them tips. More educated travelers are better travelers in terms of the purchasing decisions they make on behalf of your company. Next. So, with that said, we're hoping we gave you some, certainly things to think about in the way you're going to handle your program moving forward, how you rethink the role of the managed program and what that might look like in the immediate future, and then also making sure that you're putting sourcing in its place, you're putting that managed program in its place, and you're thinking beyond that managed program about what you can do to drive both better spend outcomes and better traveler satisfaction for your organization. In any case, hoping we have a few questions, and we have just a few minutes to do some quick Q&A.
Great. That was a great session, guys, and we do have a lot of questions that have come in throughout, so I'm just going to go ahead and kick it right off. With a question to Laura about the dynamic rate audit capabilities. And the question is, does the rate audit only include the hotel rates, or does it also consider things like internet fees or parking fees or even breakfast? So even if a rate is $5 higher, it still may be a better deal because of those amenities. So how does it account for that?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you asked this question because I forgot to mention we've also been working on adding in amenity auditing, and I'm being told, I was chatting with the person in charge of that, we'll have that ready within the next couple of months. So it's very exciting. Not only will we be auditing dynamic rates, but we'll be auditing amenities for all rate types.
Excellent. I've got a couple of great questions here around rate targets. So April, these are going to be for you. What do you do in a large city that has different targets per area of the city?
So that's a tough one because right now the way that things work, at least in the online booking tools that I'm familiar with, you cannot go below a city level to load a target, at least as far as I know. I don't believe you can do it by zip code, postcode, or anything like that. So it's not going to be as refined as you'd like. However, if you do it in a more manual way. However, there are tools out there that hopefully we'll be bringing to market soon, or you can pursue yourself, that actually calculate rate targets on the fly in real time and in a more refined manner. So the possibility does exist if you're willing to invest a bit into that process. And I actually think that's the better choice anyway, because your rate targets are going to be more relevant. When you load a rate target, even if you load it monthly and you recalculate it, market rate volatility is so high, it's not always going to be completely relevant, right? But your rate caps aren't today either. I wouldn't make that a barrier. I would still do it. And then, you know, hopefully as you see results, you'll be willing to then maybe invest further and refine it further. That's another area to educate your travelers. You know, put a banner in about market rate targets. What are they intended to do, and what do they do when they're not relevant for that particular point in time that they shop? So I do think we can get around some of those limitations. It's not perfect, but guess what? I find we don't need perfect 90% of the time. We just need decent, and we can still get an impact from it. Next.
Absolutely. Laura, this one is for you. How do we determine or forecast our volumes for 2021? Particularly because 2020 data is not really applicable, and 2019 data is out of context now.
Yeah, great question. So right away when COVID hit, this topic came up, and very, very quickly, and it was funny, we came up with a strategy, and then we talked to a few of our clients, and they were thinking the same things too. You don't use 2020 data. It's useless. Use your 2019, and in most cases, you've already got it. You've already done some analysis on it because you used it for 2020. Don't be worried that it's not full year. I mean, you need a baseline. You don't need perfection. I was talking about this with a salesperson this morning. We're literally going to rip it apart and factor it down. So you need a reasonable baseline that's reflective of some sort of normalcy of your normal hotel business, and then you can work internally. It's very important you work internally. For example, I was talking with a pharmaceutical client within the last couple of days, and they said, well, we're going to be doing this because of this drug coming out, and then there's going to be this happening because of the vaccine trials that are going on. That's all really, really great information that they can then relay to the hotels that they are asking to spend time sitting down and talking this year. Really great context. So again, don't worry so much about the starting point. Go grab that 2019 data that you already have. Don't waste time and money trying to do any analysis on it. Use that as your starting point, and then you got to get in the trenches with your internal stakeholders and get really thoughtful about what you might be doing in 2021.
Awesome. A great question just came through for April, kind of along the same lines as the question around the dynamic rate audits. Does the hotel price assurance include for things like amenities? The biggest reason we don't use this type of tool is that we don't want a lower price that strips out these amenities.
A good price assurance tool, I'm not quite sure what you have access to, absolutely does control for amenities. Our standard settings control for the key amenities like breakfast, Wi-Fi, and you can even control for parking and some others if you so choose. But yeah, totally, it's there. So take another look. Maybe last time you looked, it wasn't.
Great. Laura, one more for you about the prepaid hotel rates. So when you talk about prepaid rates, are you talking about non-refundables? And it feels like there might be some risk to booking these types of rates.
Yeah, great question. So prepaid might be non-refundable. So again, there's all sorts of, we call them, just restricted rates. So you have to, so I guess to answer the question very holistically, is that it starts with the travel manager. First of all, you need to see the opportunity in including these rate types in your program, in your booking tools, and making them available to travelers. They're out there, they're good deals, there's savings to be had. Then the second step is, how do you then capitalize on those savings? It comes down to you understanding where the opportunities lie, and then taking an approach that requires you to think about how your travelers are thinking. What do they know versus what do they not know? Think about how they behave, and you have to create a communications plan and strategy around this to guide them to use them in the right scenarios. So is there risk? Yeah, of course, if you're just going to go into it blindly. But again, the marketplace has gotten more complex. You think about it, hotels in the last 5 to 10 years started coming out with all of these things, extending cancellation policies, creating these restricted rate types, two-week cancel and you get, say, 20% off, 1 week cancel, 10% off. I mean, you go out there, the variations are astounding. But they represent savings that could be had. So they've gotten more complex, they've gone deeper. You need to go deeper too, and you need to think critically. But there's a way to capitalize on them, but you do have to have a really well thought out communication strategy and plan, and you've got to connect with your travelers. But you do that right, you're going to capitalize on those savings.
Yeah, one of the things that we have recently released is the capability to only show restricted rates, put prepayment aside, like 3 days before travel. So you don't have people booking way out. And maybe that's the way you dip your toe in the water, and you at least start with them. You take a look at the breakage you actually have from that, and maybe then you decide to expand it. The fact of the matter is when travelers are outside your program, which many of you have a lot of leakage, they're seeing and booking these restricted rates. And then they go into your program, they don't see them, they can't book them. They're like, where are these low rates? And you're not telling them why they're not there and explaining it. And so they lose confidence. Anyway, hopefully what you take from that too is it's not just about the decisions you make about the program, but it's how you frame those decisions and explain them to your travelers. So you really get the biggest impact and also don't lose them along the way.
Great. And I think we have time for one more question. And April, this one is going to be for you. Do you know if there's a way to load rate targets into an online booking tool such as Concur Travel?
There is. You just don't load rate caps. You load rate targets. And then in terms of, you could program in the little hover over area, the little pop-up that comes up, that it's out of policy, for example, or a caution because the rate is higher than the target amount you want them to spend. That is what we do. Excellent.
Well, that concludes our webinar for today, and I would like to thank everyone for attending. You will be sent a follow-up email with this recording for you to refer back to and share with your colleagues. We'd like to thank you for participating and invite you to register for BCD Travel's upcoming webinar on duty of care, which is taking place next week. You can find the registration link at bcdtravel.com. You can learn more about Advito by visiting our website at advito.com or by emailing us at advice@advito.com. And thank you so much for attending today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.